In this video, I'm going to be testing a cheap driver. Now, I went onto Amazon and I found a driver for just over £100 that was in about the right spec for my game, and I bought it, and I'm going to test it in two different ways. Firstly, on a launch monitor, and secondly, out here on the golf course at the London Club. Now, I have already done my launch monitor testing. I hit it up against a premium driver that I was fitted for. So looking at some two ends of the spectrum in terms of price, and I wanted to do a head-to-head using TrackMan Launch Monitor and Titleist Pro V1X golf balls, and I've got the data to show you now without telling you what the driver is. I'm going to start with the fitted driver, the more expensive premium one. You can see club head speed 113.5, ball speed 166.5, launching at 11.2, spinning at 22.58, and giving me a total, average carry yardage of 281 and a total yardage of 308. Now that's the fitted driver, and those numbers are really good for me in my game. So how did my cheap driver get on? Well, club head speed 111.1, ball speed of 166.6, launching at 9.8, spinning at 29.41, and that gave me a carry distance of 275 and a total yardage of 297. So as you can see, my cheap driver, in terms of the number, in terms of the launch monitor data, isn't too bad. But that's only half the story. We need to get it out onto the golf course to find out how good it is out here. And above all else, we need to find out exactly what that cheap driver is. Let's go and take a look. Okay, so the driver in question is the Maisel Z35. Now, this is a brand that has its own store on Amazon. If you go on there, you'll find a few different driver models available to you. And the reason I went for this head, I think it might be a little bit of an older version, but it was the one that I was able to find with the spec that was right for me and my game. So 10.5 degree head, stiff shaft, about right for me. So that's why I picked this particular driver, and as I say, it came in for just over £100. Now I'm going to hit a few shots on the second hole here at the London Club on the Heritage course and talk about things like the looks and the feel, and then I will hit it again up against the premium driver that I've already shown you the data for. Now, in terms of the sort of profile down behind the ball, it's got quite a deep face. I like the fact that the face is silver, so it highlights the loft on offer. It doesn't look too hard to hit. I think it looks fairly inviting down behind the ball. It's got a nice sort of rounded head shape to it. It does have a sort of blue finish to it on the crown. I'm not sure it'll be for everyone. I don't mind it too much. It's quite a high, I think you can pick that up through the microphone. It's quite a high pitched impact sound. That's certainly higher in terms of the feel and the pitch that I would go for myself, for my own driver. But to be honest with you, if you are going for a cheaper driver, I would expect it to have quite a high pitched sound to it. And if you're not such a fast swinger, so I swing the club head around about 112 miles an hour with the driver. If you're a slightly slower swinger, I can see how that higher pitched, louder impact sound might help you feel as if you can get the ball up and away without too much effort. I would say the grip feels quite thin and the shaft feels pretty flexy in my hands, actually. Maybe that explains why the spin rates were what they were in the testing. So that's gone out with a nice draw. It's quite it's quite a strong ball flight. Hopefully you can see that through the camera. Really strong ball flight, nice bit of draw on it. Like, for a driver that's only coming in at just over £100, the performance of that is really good. I don't know how far up the fairway it's gone, but I'm expecting it to have gone a decent distance. I'm not giving up, I wouldn't have said, a huge amount by having this if I can continue to hit shots like that while I'm on the golf course. One thing I would say is that during my launch monitor testing, I did hit a couple of quite big wides with this driver. And I guess for me, I think that's probably where the big compromise would come. I think I would not maybe have quite as much control over a driver like this versus my own driver. And I would expect to hit the odd one that is a bit wide, but we'll see. Yeah, it's definitely launching quite low, a bit like what I saw from the launch monitor's data. It's a 10.5 degree head, but for me, this is launching a little bit low. But in terms of the performance, all three of those shots I've hit there are either on the fairway or pretty close to the fairway, definitely not in any trouble. Whether or not I could keep that up through all 18 holes, whether or not I've had quite as much control of this driver as I would with my own fitted one, I'm not so sure. But on first impressions, I would say the Maisel Z35, pretty good. Right, so the driver that I tested the Maisel up against right at the beginning of this video was the TaylorMade Stealth Plus. This I was fitted for, has been in my bag all year, and I've been really pleased with the performance of this driver. Now, obviously, this comes in at over £500 here in the UK, so the difference in price between these two clubs is not insignificant. And I appreciate that this comparison isn't necessarily one that an awful lot of people are going to be making for themselves, but it is interesting to see what you get at both ends of the driver market if you're wanting to buy something that's new. So I'm going to hit a few more shots. I'm going to hit 3 drives with each driver out here on the golf course. I've got the Garmin Approach R10 running, so should get some launch data so that we can compare how they're performing out here on the golf course. Now, the reason that I like this TaylorMade driver is I really love the sort of sound and feel. It sounds and feels to me just like a premium driver should, and I should think you'll be able to pick up on the differences through the microphones. Let's come out the top of the club a bit. I suspect that's not flown an awfully long way, but it's gone quite, yeah. So that's flown 257 and gone 274. Not my best, absolutely dead straight though. Yeah, that's better. That's hit much more out the middle of the face, much more ball flight on it. That's carried 266 and 284 total, which I'd be really pleased with. One more. That's 2 on the fairway so far for the TaylorMade. It's going to be quite a hard standard to maintain this, I think. We'll see. Oh, that's gone left. It's homing in on that trap on the left-hand side. Yep, straight in. That has gone. That's carried 250 and gone 272. Now, I wouldn't describe any of those drives as going particularly long, but it's pretty dead out here. The atmosphere is pretty heavy. And actually, I would be much more concerned about hitting the fairway, and all 3 of those, they weren't bad drives. So let me just change the data on here to a different club, and we'll hit the Maisel. So immediately, putting it down behind the ball, noticing the face because of that contrast. I think the one, I guess, negative point for me with the TaylorMade driver is that red face is quite a dark finish, and I can understand why for some people it might make that driver feel a little bit intimidating down behind the ball. You don't have that with this. This feels like you see a lot of the face. It feels like you don't have to work too hard to get the ball up in the air. The alignment's nice and simple. I'm not so sure about the blue finish on the crown. I'd probably prefer if it was all black. But in terms of looks, I wouldn't say it's too bad at all. There you go, I've hit that straight. Much louder impact sound. Interestingly, this driver definitely launches for me lower than I would expect a 10.5 degree driver to launch. That's gone 245 and gone total distance of 288. So it's not saying the distance is too bad. By the naked eye, I can see clearly that is just not carried as far. Definitely almost feels lighter, this driver. I think that's just because maybe the grip's a bit thinner. It just doesn't feel quite so solid. The slice on that. I've had that issue a bit with this driver where I've hit a couple that have gone a bit out to the right. That one's gone 35 yards right, carried 244 and gone a total of 258. I have hit the odd one like that with this driver where I sort of haven't struggled with that shot with my own driver in quite the same. I can hit bad ones with my own driver, but I'd say it's probably a bit more often with this. Okay, so that's the last one. I've hit that one pretty well. That's carried 257 and got a total of 274. I think that sort of leads me on to my sort of overall verdict with this driver would be that in terms of the performance with regards to distance, it's really quite good. I was surprised by how close it was in terms of the performance to my own driver. Not quite as long, but then the spec's not quite right for me, but offered consistently pretty good distance for me, this driver. Where I did struggle a bit more with it was with the control aspect, and I think that's what I get when I go for a fitting, and premium driver with a really good fitting. I end up with a golf club that I can hit straight more often than not. I know I can hit straight when I'm under pressure. That's possibly where I'd be giving up a bit with this driver, but then you've got to think about, well, who is this driver for? I suspect it's probably for those people who are just starting out, wanting to kit themselves out with a driver and see how it goes. And I think if you make a good swing and you catch it well, then it will perform for you. Whether or not it'll be quite as consistent as some of those drivers that you might get at the other end of the market is up to you. And the other decision you'll need to make if you are a beginner looking for a driver is whether you go for something that's a bit older from one of the leading premium manufacturers, but that's going to require you to have a good understanding for what your spec would be with the driver as well. So there's lots to think about here. I would say that the overall performance of this Maisel driver is pretty good and better than I was expecting. That's probably what I would end up by saying. I'm not quite sure the shaft and the grip are quite right for me, but in terms of the performance of the head, I think it was better than I was expecting. So there you have it. That's it for now from the London Club. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.